Hello everyone, welcome to our live stream. I'm new, so you're probably like, who the heck are you? I'm Margaret
Who the
Crone.
heck are you? Who are you?
I'm Margaret Crone. I'll be your community marketing lead. And then of course you know these lovely people, but I'll let you each introduce yourselves.
I'm Stephen Sharif.
Hi, I'm Jeffrey Bard.
And what do you do here?
Oh, I am the owner, CEO, creative director.
I am the lead designer.
Yeah, because we might have some new people coming in and checking
that's
it
true.
out.
Hi, new people.
Those people.
Yes.
Hi, new people. Welcome. So first, we'll talk about what we're going to be covering today. Today, we're going to be covering the Apocalypse Beta Weekend. We have a whole weekend filled with awesomeness. It's already live, so you can hop in and you can play, and you can put this up on your other monitor, or try to have two things going if you can, or use your phone. I don't know. Watch both at the same time. But you can be playing and also listening to us at the same time, and that is going to be going until 10 p.m. on Sunday evening Pacific Standard Time.
Exciting
Google
weekend.
to translate
Yeah.
your tone time.
Yeah, we're excited to have you guys in and testing the Apocalypse. We get a lot of great data from this.
Yes.
It's really helpful for us.
And we'll be talking a little bit about what we're testing and what kind of data we're going to be capturing throughout this. And then also we'll be moving in and we'll be talking about siege design.
Ooh.
We're going to be we're actually going to show you footage of some of the siege maps, which I think you guys are all going to be really excited to see. And then we also are going to go into some of the classes. We'll show you some emblems for those classes, and then also go a little bit more deeper into those classes and talk about their roles and maybe some of their skills. But I think we're going to be, remember, this is all subject to change. We're very early in design on some of these concepts, so the name of that ability might change down the line,
Yeah.
right? That type of thing, or the class name.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are kind of things that we're going to be starting with, so I hope you guys enjoy that. But before we get all into all that, there are some quick updates. I think the first thing that we want to talk about is my.com and mail.ru, and so I'll let Stephen take that.
Yeah, absolutely. We are still working on some last-minute changes that need to be done before we can get the integration for Game Center up and running for the my.com and Mail.ru players. We'll be expecting to get that done soon, and we'll give you guys an update. You can also tune into the my.com and Mail.ru official channels for updates there.
Yeah, and I've been trying to be really good about, because obviously, if you're playing on Intrepid Studios launcher, then you should be able to hop in and log in and have no problem. But I've been trying to message that as much as I possibly can when people message me regarding that. I'm one person though. I'm trying, man. And then, of course, the next thing is I think we will have some hotfixes and things of that sort, and we'll keep you guys updated on those things. I know there's a couple errors that we want to fix and wrap up. So if you're encountering some of those, we are going to be messaging anything that's going to be regarding
we'll send out probably a little news with regards to downtime that we may be expecting in a couple of hours, probably.
Yeah.
And that should be coming update soon.
Yeah. And then, of course, the one thing that I'm sure all of you guys are excited about, and I've seen you guys already spamming it in chat, I have the bot set up, so if you do Expedition Giveaway, it should tell you what you need to do. But if you do AOC Hype, and you have to remember the case sensitivity of that, make sure you only do it once. If you do it more than once, it takes you actually out of the giveaway. So, haha, spammers.
Oh, no.
I love bots and how they just do exactly what I want. But if you just type that in chat, then it will put you into the giveaway at the end of this, when we're doing the 5-minute wrap up towards the end, when the stream's at the end. I will pick the winners. We're gonna pick 2 of those.
Nice.
That bot does tell you that too.
Sweet.
Then the other thing is, and if you want more information on the beta, exclamation point beta in chat if you're watching us live on the stream. If you're watching this on YouTube, just go to our blog page, or I'll have it in the description below. So that should cover that.
Hello.
I think we talked a little bit already about me and why I'm here, but I guess to go into detail, I think I'm not going to go too much into this. I think a lot of people, if you checked out the AMAA that I did on Reddit, I went into detail about some of the major things that I'd like to see changed and worked on. Thank you, Stephen, for approving them. Basically, my first day here, I was like, here are all the things, and I was sitting with him and the producers, and they're all, we had our conversations, and we were able to agree upon a lot of those things. So those are the first step things that I need to accomplish.
Absolutely. And by the way, guys, if I'm coughing or
if I cough, yeah.
Stephen is dying.
No, Stephen is not dying.
Everyone in Discord is like, "Are you dying? What happens if the student
I got sick, and we had sickness in the
Yeah.
office that kind of ran around as a standard.
And then I was
every year.
separately sick while I was moving to become
Yes.
to
So
join
I
you all.
apologize in advance for coughing during the stream. But no, we are extremely. I keep looking at the mic. And I'm like,
I keep doing that too. I don't know
I
why.
know it's
It's real
right there.
weird.
Hello, Mike. microphone.
We are extremely excited at Intrepid Studios to have Margaret on board. She is an unbelievable asset already in just a week's period of time. And the enthusiasm and passion that Margaret has for gaming is refreshing. It is like a kindred spirit, and I'm just very excited. I'm just excited
It's
for
awkward
what
when
she
people
can bring.
talk about you, you know, and you're
Especially
like
when you're
there.
right there.
Yeah, I'm just like.
But no, Maggie's been awesome. Like it's really been we've needed this for a really long time, and we finally found the right person for it.
Right.
So we're super stoked to have her on board.
Yes.
So speaking of that, you may all. I know a lot of people keep calling me your community manager, but I'm not actually your community manager. I will be handling a lot of the higher level things in regards to that, and we are going to announce right now that we are hiring a senior community manager.
Yes.
So they will take on some of the roles of like the day-to-day communication. So a lot of the Discord conversations, the responding to people on Facebook and Twitter, and doing a lot of those types of things. While I'll be working on like much higher level marketing and community development stuff, like the content creator program and things of that sort, and working with our press team and a lot of stuff like
And
that.
people can expect to find out who that senior community manager
soon.
is
TM.
very soon.
Yeah, we can't talk about it yet.
Yes.
So, but whenever we are allowed to, we definitely will. So moving on to the things that you actually probably really want us to talk about, we'll go first into our update and the status of the Apocalypse Beta. Again, just to reiterate, we started today right on time at 9 a.m. Woo!
Wow.
Server's up on time.
And we haven't had an audio issue yet
Yeah.
either during the stream.
We don't know that.
What
Don't
is
say
happening?
that. Don't say that. Don't jinx us. We did have the lovely audiovisual guys here yesterday helping us set things up, and earlier today. So cross our fingers we don't have any issues. But first things first, we wanted to talk a little bit about what we're testing in this current beta. So I kind of want to toss that to you guys, and
Yeah.
you can talk on that.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we had, as you guys know, back in December, we had launched the open beta, and we immediately were inundated with a lot of traffic, a lot of people wanting to play, and that allowed us to see some issues that we still had.
We saw some issues.
Yes, and our philosophy here is when we see an issue, we need to address it, we need to take things down, and we need to spend the time that's necessary in order to actually fix the problem.
Yeah, there are some systemic things that we couldn't go maintain live.
Absolutely.
And keep a straight face.
And
so.
because the architecture that's intended for Apocalypse is the architecture that will be intended for the MMORPG, it's vitally important that we get this architecture correct in preparation for the alphas and the betas. Gosh, I keep looking at that mic.
I do too, man.
Why do I keep
Stop
looking at
smacking
it? I'm
the
so
table,
sorry. I know.
We could put like a little white box around it. Oh, then you wouldn't hear us.
I'm sorry. It's vitally important that we get that architecture in a state that is acceptable for our alphas and betas for the MMORPG. I mean, that's the whole purpose of Apocalypse, the BR mode, the castle sieges, the horde that we intend to launch. Those are all geared towards preparing the alphas and betas for the MMORPG because that's a giant task.
We really want this stuff. I mean, what we're working toward is having this stuff be live ready, right? That's what you guys have been experiencing. That's what this weekend test is about. And if we can say that our infrastructure is live ready, by the time we get to another open session of this,
Correct, yes.
we're in really good shape.
Very good shape, yes.
So it's good for us, right?
Yes. And the other thing is, excuse me, it's important to note, I mean, you guys know this because most of you who are tuning in have been tuning in, but the whole purpose of an open development that you guys get to see the nitty-gritty details of what it is to make a massively multiplayer game. It's a difficult thing to do.
There's a lot of moving parts.
And we're blessed with having a lot of very veteran developers, right? I mean, that's the great thing about Intrepid Studios is we get to take these developers who have their experience from major MMOs in the past, and we get to employ that experience here on this project. Well, we're still doing some cutting-edge things, some new things, especially with an engine, that requires a good amount of tender love and care, and that has many features out of the box that's great, right? And we want to make sure that those things are doing what we need them to do for the MMO.
Yeah, we fix the big problems, the big tough things first, right? We get those out of the way, and then the rest is content.
Absolutely.
So,
yes.
Yeah, and so just to reiterate some of the testing fixes we have, but these are also on the blog that I put up, so if you want to check that out, I have actually a full patch notes. I think this is the first time we've ever had patch notes.
I believe so.
So if you want to see those, you can check those out, as well as like the known issues that we currently currently have. But like some of the major things that we were trying to fix were the bug fixes from the December test. I know we had like quite a few of those, and we do have a new bug form. So make sure that you check out that link and click that. And if you encounter any bugs, make sure you're using that new format, because that's going to help our QA team be able to send that stuff with the things that they need in order to give that to the devs.
I'd like to double up and like super like emphasize that, because that stuff goes directly to our QA team, and our QA team is kind of taking that and using that to create repro steps. So as good as our QA team is, they are not thousands of people, and so that stuff allows us to get to the real problematic things really quick.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And those of you who have yet to actually log into the new website, we have gotten the flow fixed with many of the bugs that had new registration and has had migration registration fixed, and including the username recovery and password recovery features are now available on the website. So it's very important, if you have yet to migrate your account, to go over to ashesofcreation.com, log in, and you will automatically then be migrated. Additionally, some people did mention that they were still having issues seeing their previous purchases in their account information. That is a part of a script that we have been using from the original database of the old website. All that information is there. Most people have received what they should have, but if there are still some people who haven't, make sure to file a support ticket so that we can dial in on specifically those use cases and fix them, because it's likely you're not the only one necessarily. You might represent a smaller subset of people. The last thing was with regards to the affiliate program. The affiliate program, all the data is present in the affiliate program. People who you have referred to the game, the purchases they've made, the credit that you have accrued. What happens right now is the way that the migration is set up, when players first log into the website, they will then appear as part of your data. It's not showing all of the old data because that data hasn't been migrated. It's dependent on a player logging in currently. However, we will be migrating that data over at a later date, regardless of if they log in, because there's still purchases that have been made.
Okay, so it covers a lot of it. And then also the 500 errors, we talked a little bit about
right,
that
so
as well.
the 500 series of error types that have been showing up, mainly 502s, were present when we launched the website back on the 18th. Majority of those have been fixed, have been addressed. There still may be some from some issues that we may not have illuminated, but we are monitoring those with logs, and we are addressing those issues moving forward. Additionally, we brought on some help with a new web team to assist with some of these issues that we've been experiencing, as well as our internal web team, which has done a great job so far handling these issues. And you will see progress made, and we'll update you with the progress on.
I have a
some
lot
of
of feedback for the web team too, so don't worry. Probably a lot of things that you guys already have as well. And then I think the last thing on our testing fixes that we wanted to cover was also the launcher installer.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So the launcher and installer is going through different iterations. You'll notice that there will be some new messages that you'll receive when logging in. You're going to see some skin changes on that installer itself that might show the blog and or news. We'll change some of that. The patch notes will soon become available through the launcher as well. You'll be able to click eventually and see those patch notes that we've already, I think you already uploaded those to.
Yes, the first patch notes are up. They're in that blog post with all the other things that you need to know about the beta.
Yep.
So it's like that's a one-stop shop for everything you need to know, and we can update that if things change or anything like that.
And again, guys, just to reiterate, the great thing about this process, although it has seemed like a bumpy road over the past month, is that it allows us to get these bumps out during this phase, and as we approach alphas and betas for the MMORPG, we will have already addressed many of these issues, and we won't have to see them again moving forward.
Ever
Yes.
again.
And I
I
think,
was just looking at the microphone.
yeah.
I was telling the microphone, hey,
Don't worry, microphone.
don't worry, microphone, it'll be
fine.
okay.
You guys are funny. And then I'm just going to quickly go over some of the things that we are, like the data that we're collecting, and then we'll go from there. So some of the data that we're collecting is the user data from login registration flow, download flow, connection to matches, performance of services or servers, the combat balance, and we actually have design logs and stuff like that we're pulling combat logs from. And then, of course, right now we are currently testing solo and squads. You will see duos on there. Please do not queue for those. I actually put that in the blog as well, that is a known issue, that is available currently, like it shows it, but don't
You'll be in
queue.
queue
You'll be in queue
forever.
forever. So just go do solos and squads. In the future, I think we're planning on making sure that we can only show the ones that we want, but right now that's an issue that we already know. And then I think one of the things that we wanted to talk about, and I think you guys might have talked about already, was kind of showcasing to you guys like the things that we thought we knew that we didn't, that we found out was totally different based on like the tests that we were working on. So I think to kind of iterate like how much the testing and what you guys are doing for us, how it makes a difference for us.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you can test all day long in the office, and until you get tens of thousands of people doing something with it, stuff's not going to break, right? Like it feels robust, it feels right. You look at the code, everything seems like it should be fine. You're testing things out, everything's working the way it's supposed to, and then you go live and all of a sudden everything breaks. And that's because just stuff at scale gets weird. There's a lot of stuff involved in balancing all that stuff and making that stuff responsive to all the people who are hitting at the same time. And that's kind of what we ran into with our website design. There was way more people hitting it than we expected.
I mean, I think in the week of of when we had launched the Apocalypse from the 18th to the 27th, we had over 2.5 million hits.
Yeah.
And that was really with no marketing. We sent out one press release, I think, on December 6th or 8th. And that's a great problem to have.
It's a great problem to have.
But it is something that, again, prepares us for the future, which is what we want to do during this development stage.
So it's great, and it's kind of illuminating in terms of how these beta processes work. We put stuff out there, we really kind of slam it so that down the line, when we go live on day one, everything works as it should, and we have a wonderful launch, and everybody can do all the things they want to do with the game.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I want to reiterate too is, and I've had to post this a lot, is because I think a lot of people are concerned about Apocalypse and that, like, oh, there's no MMO. And of course, we're working on the MMO. I mean, this Apocalypse is helping us test a lot of the systems, whether that's PvP, and obviously right now you guys aren't seeing the PvE aspect of it, but with Horde Mode, I think we're going to showcase a lot of that.
I mean, it is the MMO.
Yeah,
at the end of the day,
100%.
Yes. So I mean, like
a small section,
and that's what we showed off last week or last live stream, was showing how we can just take what's in Apocalypse and just drop it into the MMO experience.
Right.
Right.
It's a seamless kind of transition.
Yeah, and I've always said, the transparency is a two-edged sword, right? You get to watch a product develop. Right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, you get to watch a product develop.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it has its upside and its downside. The downside is, from a development standpoint, all of these systems, all of this back end, all of the architecture we're developing.
Make him stop hitting the table.
I know. All of those things relate to the MMORPG, right? And then additionally, the systems that we're working on with the MMORPG in preparations for Alpha 1, we're a large team. Not all of our assets 100% are on Ashes of Creation Apocalypse, right? We're still moving forward in the MMORPG in preparations for Alpha 1.
Yeah, and I think I'll be able to showcase a lot of those things with some of the content. We're going to be making more articles, we're going to be making more videos, and even some fun GIFs that will kind of show you guys some sneak peeks into things. So we have a lot of plans, and I hope that can suffice and help you guys see what we're creating, and maybe not, because some of those things won't be in Apocalypse because they're not for it, right? So you're going to get to see a lot of it. So that's a perfect transition into our next topic, which is siege design. Woo-hoo! So I think the first thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to play a video for you. So we hope that you guys enjoy the video, and we'll be talking a little bit about it as soon as we return. so that was the video. I know that there's some people who want to see gameplay and stuff. We'll be showcasing a lot of that as we get closer.
Yep.
There was like actually another video that we were discussing putting in there, and then we're like, no, we'll just hold off. But let's talk first about kind of these castles that you see here. I want to talk about the names of them and the lore, so I'm actually going to throw that over to you. And we can start things off if you want.
Yeah, so we basically have, right now we've got 2 maps. Not quite sure exactly how many maps we're going to end up with, but we have one representing the Dunzenkel, which are the sort of dwarven folks, pre-fall.
Dwarves.
Yes.
Their castle is named Milnar. So it's kind of like a very dwarven-y kind of experience. There's some underground tunnels. There's a lot of different ways to like kind of go underneath the map. And then, of course, their walls are big and sturdy and strong, and it's built into the face of the wall. And so there's some very interesting tactical concerns dealing with a dwarven castle versus...
It's also situated on a mountainside, right? And the attacker's battlefield is kind of against the precipice a little bit, right?
Yep.
You kind
Their
of
backs
have
are
to make
against
your way up
a
there.
cliff.
Yes,
basically.
exactly.
Yeah, you can't get behind.
Yeah,
No
exactly.
flanking.
No flanking. And then we have the Korgan Castle.
Yep.
Which is the Aelin map.
Which is
now,
our humans.
Right, that's right. These are the ancient humans before the fall. And, the idea behind these castle maps is, there are 5 castles that are intended for Ashes of Creation, the MMORPG. So it's very likely that eventually you will see 5 castle maps on the
possibly
on the Apocalypse gameplay. So the idea here is that we have 2 sides. We have the attackers and the defenders, right? And when you join into the castle siege in Apocalypse, you're going to be able to select one of 6 classes. Right, and upon selecting those classes, then you're going to be placed on your starting side, whether it be the attacker or the defenders, and then you're going to be able to start preparations. It's going to be a little bit of a loading time where you have selected those classes. You're going to take positions, perhaps, and whatnot. And there are siege weaponries that's going to be present. You see here some ballistas, some trebuchets, a battering ram. There may be some traps and some powder keg kind of stuff available to destroy
you throw
certain
like
things.
oil kegs over.
The whole
Light 'em on
first
fire.
phase is going to be about figuring out how to get inside the castle. So that's kind of what that first phase is going to be about. It's going to be a lot of things blowing up, people trying to stop you from blowing up their things. It should be a pretty exciting phase of the game.
Right.
And then eventually, once those walls are breached, it's going to be about capturing capture points.
Yes.
Capture points can increase or decrease the duration of the map.
Yes.
It will change the opposing side's respawn times. It'll give your side a nice, good buff to help you kind of keep the morale up on your side and keep making progress. And then, of course, any capture point you take, when you respawn, you can teletport to that capture
Correct.
point.
Ooh,
So,
that's awesome. Yeah.
so there's a lot of interesting things that can happen on the battlefield. A lot of different changes, shifts and flow of how fights happen. So we're pretty excited about it all in all.
I think, and then obviously you guys talked a little bit about all of those things. Let's talk a little bit about how the differences are going to be when it comes to like Apocalypse versus the MMORPG, so we can kind of show like that.
Yeah, so I mean, by and large, we're modeling this after kind of what we want to see happen in the actual MMO. Obviously, there's going to be more classes. There's going to be more skills. There'll probably be more different types of siege weaponry. There'll be more of a lot of stuff. But the overall kind of basic combat of it will be very similar to what you're going to see here.
Right. I mean, when talking about strategy, the ability to capture these points, the ability to penetrate the walls and or gates, creating these choke points that have become available. The primary objective on the attacker's end is to reach the center keep of the castle, to channel on the final relic that's present in order to actually achieve the victory. Whereas then on the defender side, you are attempting to hold out, right?
Survive.
And you can
Keep them out of
rush.
the walls.
You can rush the field as a defender. You can approach the enemy encampment, their headquarters, and you can damage their ability to siege, basically.
Right, you can take out their siege weapons, you can take out their control points, you can reduce their spawn or increase their spawn times so that you kind of gain the upper hand on that map.
Yeah.
But again, that's going to be very similar to what's going to be happening in the MMO.
Yes, and in the MMO, castle sieges are very a primary point of contention attention when it comes to guild play,
I was
PvP
just
on the
gonna
map.
say,
You know,
do we want to transition and talk a little bit about raid versus raid stuff? I know we don't want to go into super detail about that yet,
Yeah.
but I know that we wanted to touch base on like a little bit to give you guys a teaser of what that's going to be like.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, when talking about raid versus raid, right, there's a lot of mechanics that come into play. There's the balance that exists between the classes and the composition of those raids against each other, how the rock, paper, scissors type of interaction occurs between those different compositions. There's also the mobility aspect, how quickly you can move a raid across a battlefield, how you can keep them cohesive and move together. How do raids impact the choke points of a castle? How wide of a opening do you need in a castle in order to make sure that you're not going to be running into death's arms when you decide to charge? Exactly. All of those ideas can get tested in Apocalypse in preparation for the MMORPG, because as we scale up the number of participants that are present in these matchmaking type sieges, we get to collect data, design data on how players interact with all of those features, right?
Yeah.
We can expand on the limited classes that'll be present in Apocalypse in preparation for the core functionality of those skills as they relate to roles in the raid composition.
And I think there's some people who are like, so where are the dragons at? You got castles. Where are the dragons at?
we do have dragons,
yeah.
but not in Apocalypse.
Yeah, some people were asking, like, they were saying, like, it'd be kind of really neat to have, like, one person be the king and you kind of, like, King of the Hill style.
It would be very cool
Yes.
as a new game.
As
Yeah.
many people know who've been following Ashes of Creation, the MMORPG, you do have a royal mount that is granted to the lord of a castle, king or queen of a castle. And that royal mount does have some efficacy on the battlefield when it relates to mass PvP, the ability to impact particularly raids, kind of breathing down fire or whatever other type of skills that specific royal mount has. But in Apocalypse, we have yet to really work on that system. I don't know if we'll see its head in Apocalypse.
Yeah.
It's a little bit difficult when you're talking about sort of like matchmaking.
Yes.
Kind
I
of
think
stuff.
this
Who
next
gets that?
question is kind of a perfect transition
Sure.
into our next topic, which is Greek wants to know, or a geek wants to know, it's spelled different. Are you adding new classes to the Siege, or is it just a plain overall basic class, similar to like, I don't know why the word plain is used, but like our BRs?
Right. The classless
Yeah, the classless sort of thing.
Onion Knight kind of guy.
So, you know, we do have 6 classes that will be associated with the Castle Siege mode in Apocalypse. And those 6 classes really relate to the Holy Trinity of standard kind of class design between tanks, damage mitigation and control versus DPS and support. And I think, do we have those? Oh,
Yep, we have them up on the
those
screen
up
right
on the
now.
screen. So you can see
It's pretty.
this is for the Apocalypse Castle Sieges. You'll be selecting one of these 6 classes when entering into the Siege mode map. We can start. We want to start with just going through
let's
them?
just start with going through them. I mean, obviously these are
Sure.
the ones that you guys see here. I wanted to give a shout out to Ryan who made the awesome emblems. So
Ryan is
check those
amazing.
out. Those
Yes.
are awesome. I'm sure he's watching the stream. But yeah, let's just go into the first group of them. We'll pop those onto the screen.
Sure.
So we kind of have each of these separate, and we're going to talk about each of them. So I guess Archwizard is to start off. We'll go with the DPS classes.
Okay.
So maybe let's first talk about DPS classes and their basic roles overall. I mean, which is
Yeah.
probably DPS.
They do damage.
And then go into the specifics with the High Priest versus the Engineer.
Yeah, so we've got the Archwizard, which is kind of focused on doing AoE damage. So they're there to kind of clear out an area to deal damage to lots of people. They don't have the kind of the focus fire ability that the Hawkeye does. But again, they're really focused on doing a large amount of damage to a large amount of people. They also have some clever tricks up their sleeves. They are wizards after all. So a couple different abilities that you might find an Archwizard to have would be we have the idea of a defensive teleport. So a wizard can get into battle, but they also can get out of battle, and they use little tricks to do that. So they will teleport backwards a good distance and leave behind a decoy so that other players don't necessarily know where he went. They also have kind of a flamethrower ability, so they'll be able to put their hand out, channel some energy, and just kind of continually do fire damage in a cone in front of them for as long as their mana bar lasts out. So that's kind of the Archwizard.
Yeah, and one of the ideas that we're playing with that we want to test necessarily is how DPS damage affects either armor and or health, right? And one of the ideas behind the Arc Wizard is that magical damage from the Arc Wizard would be more impactful against armor that a player has, as opposed to necessarily health.
Right.
And vice versa for the Hawkeye.
Right. Hawkeye has abilities that allow them to ignore armor entirely, and they can kind of focus on getting headshots and stuff that, again, kind of get out of the armor situation.
Right. And
so I do have some a question from the chat is regarding obviously the two DPS classes that we're showcasing right now are these two. Are there going to be any melee ones as well?
Yes.
Yes, there will be.
Both the Guardian and the Weapon Master are primarily melee in nature.
Yeah, they're entirely melee in nature. Yeah.
That answers your question.
And then as far as the Hawkeye goes, a couple of cool abilities that they have they've got the grappling hook so that they can get up onto high places easily. They can basically, shoot people from afar, and so we want to give them the ability to kind of take advantage of that and get up into position quickly. Again, that's partly because they have a lot of abilities that kind of lock themselves down.
I like the way they fire the most because it's like the guided arrow type of
Yeah,
thing.
so that's one of the abilities we have is a guided arrow, so that when they fire, this ability allows them to kind of actually pilot the arrow so they can get around corners and kind of take out people who are giving them a lot of trouble.
We'll need a lot of testing with that, so
Yeah.
have fun. Because I think you might have even said so how's that going to work with walls?
Well, you just go around.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, that's the point, right?
Exactly.
Grappling hook and then...
We want to keep it fun, right?
Yeah.
Oh, we're talking about the grappling hook. Yeah.
I was talking about
absolutely.
the guided arrow.
Oh, when I
So
said
you
with
grappling
walls,
hook and then you guided arrow.
I wanted to know with the wall how that would work with walls is if you shoot the grappling hook at the top of the wall, that we make sure
you
you
just-
fly over and don't just hit the lip of the wall.
And just go down. You actually can just
You just
get
hit the
up.
lip
You just
and
never
fall.
actually get up on
I'm
it.
like, that's going to be interesting. We need to make sure that we get some
yeah.
momentum.
Yeah, I'm sure that's the thing with internal testing. We get to have all these these videos of terrible things happening before you guys get to see
Yeah.
them. I have a lot of really funny bug videos from past games that I've worked on. But yeah, so I think we're gonna go into our next class a little bit then.
What's the next slide? I can't see it.
I think that did we do Guardian Weapon
We did
Master?
not do
yeah, let's do
Guardian.
that
We do
next.
Guardian.
Yeah,
All right.
So,
we'll save the other one.
There you go,
next.
Guardian.
Haha.
Yeah, so we've got Guardian is kind of your more traditional sword and board kind of guy. He's really focused on armor mitigation. And then we have the Weapon Master, and the Weapon Master is more focused on a big health pool and keeping that health pool full. And they're kind of more get in front, disrupt the back lines, and kind of move people out of the way so that other people can get through. So to that end, the Guardian has the ability to do an AoE pull. You may have seen this in our Alpha Zero. Basically, they can throw out a bunch of spears, bring everybody to them, and kind of force them to engage the Guardian. Then they also have a kind of a mobile shield that they can deploy that's kind of attached to the character. The character can move it around. It'll block any projectiles coming their way, prevent them from getting to the back lines, and then it will also absorb that damage and then eventually explode, doing AoE damage based on how much damage is absorbed.
Yeah, so I can stand in front of my friend and block
Yep,
stuff.
and I can heal.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Awesome.
And then for the Weapon Master, right, we've got, again, the idea behind the Weapon Master is that they're super aggressive. They're trying to get in, disrupt things, make people run away. And one of those abilities is the ability to leap. So a leap, these are not official names, right? We're not just going to call it leap. But we'll do a canonical pass on names later. But so they can basically do a gigantic leap forward. They'll do a superhero ground pound or maybe smash the weapon down and then kind of blow everybody up from where they land. So again, this is really focused on getting them into the fight quickly and disrupting the opponent's lines. Then oldie, but a good one.
Oldie but good.
Spin to win, whirlwind. So
Spin to win.
they're gonna stick out their weapon and just start spinning around
better
and,
see,
and
the Darude
doing a
thing in
lot
the
of
chat.
AoE damage. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I know there's been some questions in chat regarding showing some of this combat. Stay tuned on our social channels. We may be showing a little bit of some animations and GIFs and some of these classes and their abilities as we move forward in the future.
And then finally, we have our support classes. We've got the High Priest, which is focused on sort of health and keeping people alive and maintaining sort of the stability of their team. And then we have the Engineer, who's more focused on either bringing things down or keeping things up. So they're focused on inanimate objects like siege weapons, walls, gates. making sure that stuff either stays healthy or gets blown up.
Right, and they each have their own specific, energy pools that they kind of manage and support. Right, the High Priest is focusing on health and stamina and replenishing those for the players, where the Engineer focuses on armor and mana and being able to augment those for players.
Can you talk a little bit more about like how that process is going to work, like how healing and how like repairing is going to work? Because I know a lot of people have asked like how.
Absolutely.
Like the actual interaction between the players going to be.
So one of the things that
we'll show it soon.
We're doing right, where we're still kind of in the experimentation phase and trying to figure out what exactly works well and what doesn't. But right now, we're really happy with what we're doing with the Scepter. So each class gets 2 weapons. I don't think we mentioned this before, but the High Priest, one of their weapons is the Scepter. But what we're doing with the Scepter is we're going to make it so that any allies that the Scepter hits, it heals, and then any enemies that it hits, it damages.
Yes.
And we're
like
also the booty, like like when you're in sports, like I always see in football, like American football, people slapping each other's butts. Like
yeah, sure, that's exactly what we're doing.
This is a family. Oh, I watched the past live streams. Don't tell me that.
That's all, Jeff.
It's never me. So again, one of the nice things about I'm sorry. I'm trying not to use my hands. I'm putting them under the table. So one of the nice things about the Scepter, right, is that it already has a homing component to it, and so that makes it a little bit easier. Instead of just shooting out something and hoping you hit, you can really focus on kind of guiding your heals where they need to be.
The way it works is on your reticle when you have a target, whether it be friend or foe, they kind of home into that target after launch. Yeah, absolutely. And then other things are going to be AOE based kind of heals, pools that you can lay down. These are abilities where you can kind of indicate to your allies, hey, come near, I'm going to support you and give you some buffs and stuff.
Come here. The one thing that every healer's like, can you all just get close to me?
Stop moving.
Because I'm trying to heal you. Yeah.
And then we're also going to bring back an oldie but a goodie. We're going to give our clerics Divine Form. So Divine Form, if you guys played our Alpha Zero, was one of the ultimates that the cleric had in that version. We're going to keep it really similar. So it basically gives the cleric High Priest, increased damage mitigation. It will heal allies who are around and damage enemies who are around them. So it's kind of a super powerful buff that they get to use every once in a while. And then finally, the engineer. The engineer is I should caveat this. The engineer is very specifically a pre-fall class. You're probably not going to see an engineer proper in Ashes of Creation, the MMO. Remember that this is a lot of progress that these civilizations have made during this period of time, and then after the fall happens and everybody goes off to Sanctus, magic disappears. So they have to kind of refigure out how to do a lot of these things.
Actually, someone was asking if there's going to be Resurrect as an option for
Resurrect
healers.
Might be an option. We still have to kind of figure out.
It's a balancing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the idea behind the life pool and player lives in castle sieges that are different than what you're seeing currently in Apocalypse with the Battle Royale mode is that you have an infinite number of lives. What's different is upon death, you join a period of time that the respawn timer, everybody shares. And let's say that respawn timer is 20 seconds and you die when it's reached 10 seconds. You have 10 seconds remaining until you respawn with a pool of your allies.
Yeah, it's like a Deadpool.
Exactly. Yeah. Nice.
We're all dead together. It's fine, friends.
So for the engineer, a couple of the abilities that they have one of their primary weapons is the crossbow, and they have an earthquake bolt, so they can fire out a little contraption that unfolds and starts pounding the ground. And every time it pounds, it'll knock all the enemies up that are around it. Again, kind of keeping people out of position, kind of affecting the battlefield and supporting their allies in a way that doesn't necessarily deal direct damage. And then they also have the Gizmo of Ingress, which is a little pod that they can place down. And anybody who is an ally who steps on that pod gets a catfall use, one-time use. So they can kind of help their friends kind of get over the walls, get into places they otherwise shouldn't be.
Yes.
And there's some questions regarding like damaging armor and how that's going to work, and the difference between the MMO and also APOC.
Right.
So
go ahead.
No, no.
Okay. So I mean,
just like I've been talking for a while.
What you're seeing currently,
I've been slamming the table.
What you're seeing currently in the Battle Royale feature of Apocalypse is you find armor, and that gives you an armor pool, and then you can regenerate your armor. what we're going to be experiencing in the Castle Siege form is each class will have a set amount of armor that they join the match with that's already full, and a set amount of health that's already full. Upon losing armor, you can either have your armor replenished by an engineer, or there may be excuse me, sorry, Jeff. You might have to take over. There may be ability for you to find items that are in the world, or there could be objectives that replenish armor for the entire team, such as one of the buffs for taking a control point.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, I think he was asking more like how does that translate to the MMO?
Yeah.
In terms of which it's going to be different.
Yes.
Armor is not going to function as a pool in the MMO. Correct. There will be like straight mitigation and one health pool. So you're not going to see an armor bar like you would in this version in the area mode.
And then I think the next question was, for the classes in Siege mode, will this have stamina on melee weapon swings and magic to recharge ranged weapons? People are wondering about that.
Yeah, so we're going to probably change a little bit of that. You're going to see abilities use stamina and mana more often than you do in the straight BR mode. Generally, though, it's going to work fairly similar. We'll probably give mana a regen rate, a passive regen rate.
Yes.
And we'll probably have some class interact with that at some point. But you're not going to find like mana drops on the field like you do in the BR. So that's going to be handled a little bit differently, pretty close, but it'll have to be handled a little bit differently.
And there's a lot of spam in chat asking about dual wielding class.
There's unfortunately no dual wielding class yet.
Not yet. Not yet.
Yeah.
There you go. So that answers some of that. I guess that is our classes.
Yeah,
that
that was a lot of talking.
So we hope that you guys like those, and give us feedback on some of those ideas that we've thrown out, and if you have some ideas of your own, you can send them our way. But obviously, as we get closer to revealing some of those, we're going to be showing you guys the animations, how some of those skills work. In fact, we're working on some videos that will be specific to each class, so we'll have class videos for the Siege classes. So there's a lot of cool stuff that's going to be coming out, and hopefully you guys enjoyed that content. I think the last thing that we want to talk about in regards to classes is maybe like small scale raid composition formats, and like what classes are going to be really good together, or like what kind of things that you guys would recommend for people as we move forward.
Yeah, the idea behind, we're talking about raid composition for the Castle Siege and Apocalypse.
Castle Siege, yeah.
So the raid composition for Castle Siege and Apocalypse, when you're in the class selection phase, this would be at the beginning of the match, you're going to be able to see your team's selection numbers that are associated with how many people have chosen the Guardian, how many people have chosen Engineer. Mm-hmm. The idea behind our balance is that these are intended to work together as a fairly balanced composition. Mm-hmm. So you're going to want to be as balanced as possible, the number of these classes that you select. And being able to see at the beginning of the match, how many people have selected what, is going to give you the information to select other ones.
Mm-hmm.
And people are wondering if you're going to be able to change classes during Siege mode. So, like, will you go in and you're stuck in that class during that mode, or will you be able to like swap during the middle of the battle?
We're still discussing that. We kind of keep going back and forth on it. There's benefits and pros and cons to both sides. I think right now we're leaning towards not being able to switch. We don't really want class switching to be a meta that ends up becoming part of the game. But we're still really considering it. It's not. We have strong feelings both ways, but we still haven't come to a final decision on it.
This is a cool question too. Will Apocalypse still be running once the MMO is launched?
Most likely, yeah.
I think like our plan is to kind of have two simultaneous products.
Yeah,
so
as long as people still love it,
yeah, if you're
right.
playing
I mean,
it,
the idea behind Apocalypse is that it gives us an avenue to test certain types of features
we can preview stuff that's going to go in the MMO.
Exactly. So, for example, in Horde mode, as we have bosses with specific types of mechanics, we can see how those bosses interact with the Horde mode before we intend to place that boss in the MMO.
It actually is a really great way to test world bosses, because we can really throw a ton of people at a given monster and see what happens without necessarily having to reveal all that stuff in the MMO proper. So there's some cool stuff.
Same is true for skills and abilities that we may want to test the functionality of.
Yep.
Right. Being able to scale up the number of combatants within an area, we can start to push those bounds easier in a confined matchmaking process than we can in a giant.
It's like a controlled experiment,
Yes.
really, is what it is.
What does that mean that we are as we're playing?
Lab rats.
So I think another question that people had, are we going to increase the pool of classes? Like, are these the final 6 classes, or will there be more classes that you're thinking about adding?
We had a little bit of an idea that we're going to explore with regards to each of the classes having a range of skills and abilities that players can customize that skill kit based on their progression within a season, let's say. And that progression can be gained from any of the modes, and it would grant you the ability to kind of customize that skill kit for the for the Siege mode or the Horde mode. But that's something that might come at a later date.
Yeah. And as far as classes go, it's possible. I'm not quite sure what our timeline will be 6 months from now, or where we're at. So right now, 6 classes. Possibly in the future there'll be more.
Okay.
And certainly for other modes there might be more too.
Yeah, and I think that that kind of wraps up a lot of the stuff that's regarding Siege. And thank you guys for tuning in here. The plan is that I will be putting a lot of this stuff into an article. So if you are watching this video and you're like, that's a lot to consume, I will be putting some of this in an article, so you guys will get to see some of that in a little bit easier format. I'll embed the video for the live stream as well. So if you missed that, you'll be able to watch that. And the little video that you guys saw of the Siege mode, that's going to be up on our YouTube channel after the stream. So you can go immediately go watch that. But I do want to cover some other questions. Obviously, I was pulling questions throughout the stream in chat. That's going to be moving forward, something that I'll be doing. So make sure that your questions,
liver questions.
So make sure that you're asking your questions pertinent to the subjects that we're talking about. But I also did talk to our Phoenix Initiative backers as well as our content creators, and they submitted some questions because everyone's always like, "You're asking the same questions. We want some other ones." Steven has agreed to try even the hard ones, so here we go. I'm just going to read them off, and then you guys can answer them.
I have not screened these questions,
no.
which we never do, so that's good.
So Jalen was asking, as APOC was designed to feed data, action combat testing for the MMORPG, and now APOC is a few weeks/months off its original timeline. That's what they think. Yeah. Can you touch upon how one product can be behind schedule, but the other is still on schedule?
Absolutely. So when you, from a project management standpoint...
Sorry if my reading's weird.
That's okay. From a project management standpoint, when you have a large team of developers working simultaneously on separate features and or systems that are required for different milestones, different deliveries. That's really kind of how you approach this whole thing. Yes, we did have some hiccups that we experienced in the beta rollout of Apocalypse with regards to the Battle Royale and the Castle Siege. However, the benefit of those types of delays is that it helps us to address underlying issues which would have caused delays at a later date with regard.
I gotta train them not use the table. I need a ruler.
I talk with my
I want to use my hands.
Which would have impacted at a later date the alphas and betas.
Yeah,
of the
if you can imagine, right? We go into Alpha 1 Alpha 1 Phase 2. We would have exactly the same problems that we've encountered so far, right? And so the same sorts of things would happen. Now those delays aren't going to happen, so it adjusts our whole schedule around that.
Right.
Okay. And our next question is from Truth Eternal, and they're saying that, we have talked a lot about how we're working on combat balance in Apocalypse, and they're wondering what imbalances do you think need the most attention right now? I can think of one thing that everyone spams me every single day with.
Bone smash?
Yeah.
Well, that was addressed today.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no, it hasn't been addressed. Sorry, it'll be addressed next patch.
Yeah, it was patched today.
Yeah. So one of the things we're doing is we're still getting all of that data aggregated and sort of in a form that's easy for us to grok and kind of parse through and really kind of digest and use in smart ways, right? So right now, I think it's relatively obvious that the sort of balance between melee and range seems really weighted on melee. That's just based on what I've watched people do on their streams. And in terms of what's actually happening in the game, we're still kind of waiting to see what the numbers tell us in the logs themselves. So
I feel like melee homies always are like, damn, man. Because you have to run up and catch somebody,
Melee's pretty strong, honestly, in the Battle Royale right now.
Yeah.
But what I would say is that with regards to
I'm just saying in other games.
Yeah, exactly. Understanding balance and how we approach those. There's a select number, going back to Jalon's question a little bit, there's a select number of developers who are associated with the addressing bugs and or issues within Apocalypse and the Battle Royale mode. When we have balance issues, those kind of fall a little bit behind the bug issues, right?
Yep.
So
bugs are way high priority.
Yeah, exactly. Bugs are a much higher priority than addressing some of the balance issues that are present, especially during a beta phase, right? When we're out of the beta phase for the Battle Royale, that's when we can start addressing some of the balance issues. Yep. But the beta phase is really intended to focus on the bugs, what is impairing players from actually getting into the game and participating in a way, and server performance, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. And we also kind of have to have just more data, right? We haven't quite gotten to a point where kind of the stability has been there so that kind of people figure out how all the weapons work, how all the abilities work, how they interact together. So we kind of wanted to bake a little bit before we actually start pulling those levers really hard. So.
Right.
Cool. All right, moving on to our next one. And I apologize if I say people's names wrong. I'm getting used to it, used to all the names, so give me a chance.
It's okay, it's Jalone next time.
Jalone. Okay, sorry. I know he's always in chat all the time.
I'm just kidding. I don't think it's Jalone. I don't
Okay,
know.
now you're messing me up. Davlos, he's going to teach you their own. Davlos says, will there be a reputation or standing system for guilds/alliances to set on each other in order to facilitate politics among them? Identifying players as allies, friends, suspects, or enemies at a glance will make the lives of guild leaders much easier. I think it's a kind of cool thing.
Yeah, it is a cool idea. Right now, the intended functionality between guilds, from both an alliance standpoint and a war standpoint, is that we have a specific system that relates to being able to invite another guild into an alliance. That sets a flag on those characters with regards to being able to combat them, being able to share a chat system with them, being able to participate in specific types of quests and or alliance warehouses and guild homes with regards to the relationship of castle sieges and participating in node warfare and node activities. If you're not in an alliance with someone, you're in a neutral state, so to speak, you can have trade agreements between different guilds, and then you can also have guild wars, which shows a state of war between you guys. I think that's the baseline of how we're going to develop interaction between guilds. It would be nice to have in the administrative window of a guild leader and or the guild leadership that you can flag relationships with other...
So much
that
UI.
kind of granularity
That's so
would be
much
great.
UI.
I know, it is. It's a lot of UI.
It's a very great, cool
Yes.
thing to do.
Yes.
But again, it's kind of beyond the scope of where we're at right now.
Yes, right.
It would be a great thing to add in
Updates.
a...
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, as you guys know, my interest, specifically having led a lot of games in a guild that I once was leader of, would be to have as much of that type of administrative granularity present for the leadership of a guild to participate in, because it makes life much easier when that's all housed and present in the game and not having to refer to your Google Docs and whatnot. Now, I'm not sure we can...
Or you know how I've had guild meetings where all the guild leaders are meeting together and we have T-suite meetings. Oh man, OG times. That's good stuff. Of course, then let's move on to the next one because we still have a lot more to go through, guys. Danny wants to know, will there be, this is why I was giggling earlier, will there be a sandal hidden in every APOC mode? If so, are the rewards for finding it the same in every mode, or do they differ dependent on the mode?
So far, so good.
There are likely...
That's all I have to say about that.
There will be some interesting Easter eggs within the shape of a sandal that are present through in the game, and it'll be fun stuff.
Daedalus wants to know, with 64 class combinations, which if you've ever looked at our class combinations, you can look at it up on our blog. I think there's one of the blogs has that, if you haven't ever seen it. With 64 class combinations, what are some of the things the team is planning to facilitate meaningful character differences with the secondary choices?
So... That's a big question.
Yeah, I was just going to say, that's a lot. There's a lot to
I'll try to unpack that best I can in as concise a way as I can.
Yeah.
Basically, because the secondary class augments the primary class, we get a ton of differentiation just from that, right? The tank will always be different from the fighter, which will always be different from the rogue, no matter what their secondary class is going to be, right? So you've got that going for you, right? And then also the augments themselves, they are so unique for each class. The tank who chooses a mage will get augments for their skills that are unique to the tank, right? The fighter, even though tank and fighter are kind of a little bit related, they play very differently, right? If the fighter chooses a mage, they'll be getting augments that are specific to the fighter class. So the kind of uniqueness and the characterization of these secondary choices are really baked into those choices. So in terms of play style and how these things play, these classes won't feel alike at all.
Right, and something that we've spoken of in the past.
They seem very different. Just even just reading like the names and kind of seeing like where they're going to go. And I think you guys have talked a little bit about each of them here and there. If you kind of go all over the internet.
Yeah. And very, very quickly, something that we've spoken of in the past with regards to those augments are not just housed solely within the secondary class option. There are going to be quest-specific and/or society-specific augments that can layer on top of. And these might change the energy descriptor. It might move from a radiance to a darkness. It might be a fire or electricity that gets changed with some of these augment abilities. They might be effects changes that are present, and not necessarily all being vertical progression, but some horizontal options that are present in the changes of these abilities that kind of relate specifically to the progress that you have made, not just in your adventuring class, but also in the other progression paths that are present: exploration, societies, node progression, guild progression. Those types of things all kind of tie into skills and abilities that create a uniqueness, a presence on the battlefield that a player can see, hey, I just saw this shield wall spawn. I know that that's this guy's shield wall because I have seen him on the battlefield before and his is unique. Yeah.
That's intense.
It is intense.
Like knowing that specific shield wall is somebody's. That's a very specific thing. I think this is going to be our last question because we are getting close to our time. I know it's been a lot.
But we started on time.
And of course, and we're running out of time. But obviously, if I know there's some other questions that are in here, next time we do a live stream, we'll do the same process. So we'll be taking live questions from Twitch chat throughout the stream, and then I will do this again for our PI and our lovely content creators as well, so we can get some more of these types of questions in, and we'll do a little Q&A thing at the end. Depending on if we have time. So this one's a big one. There's a lot in here, and this is from Trapos. Oh, sorry if I'm saying your names wrong. Could you share the progress update on development of the core MMO systems which add dynamicism to the world, i.e. node progression, caravans, and events? I'd love to hear what these systems are how these systems are progressing, and whether any discoveries from your internal testings have evolved your thinking about how they will work in the MMO. I know it's a lot.
That is a lot.
So I figure we can end on a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean,
go big or go home. Right?
As you guys know, since over a year ago, we've had the core vertical slice of many of these systems, particularly with regards to the node, developed for our Alpha Zero testing. Many players participated in the Alpha Zero testing. It was under NDA. However, we did recently release the verbal NDA. People can discuss what they saw kind of present at that time. You've seen the speed at which we progress when it comes to creating this apocalypse game and these different game modes that we've released, how we made it to PAX after only 3 months after the Kickstarter, and had a playable demo that was present there. The progress on systems and the core technology behind what makes Ashes of Creation as an MMORPG work, those defining systems and features, are currently in a state of active development, and they're being prepared for Alpha 1. And as we approach Alpha 1, many of the questions and desires for our community to kind of see these systems will be in a presentable state, and we'll be able to offer kind of videos showing those things. I know I was just showing you a little bit of the wall destruction physics and stuff.
That's what he was showing me, and we were debating
whether
to show something.
Margaret, can we show this?
But here's the thing: like we're always looking at tech, and the thing for us on that front is once we see all of us get in and we're all destroying the walls, and the wall chunks are coming down, maybe performance isn't so good, and we have to change the back end tech. So I think like for me, I just want to make sure like this is what you guys are going to see.
And it's that philosophy, right, that relates to how we show these core features.
We might show some wall destruction footage in the future like soon, so don't worry.
But particularly that principle of progress that we're making in development for these core features, when they're ready to be shown, which will be much closer to the Alpha 1 date, which is going to be around the end of second quarter, we'll be able to start showing out the content roadmap that you're making, begin to show these systems in a state that's going to be much progressed than what Alpha 0
is. And we know
is.
Nodes 3 is on that progression list. I'm getting memed so much for it. Even my first day, I made sure that was in my AMA
priority box.
Yeah, so I knew that's something that you guys all want to see. It is a huge system that I think the Node system is one of my favorite systems.
It's the system, right? Like it is the thing that holds it all together.
Right, so. and you know, some of the stuff that we may show is that we have Tad and Michael Bacon and Devin and the environment team. They have this. I don't know if you saw. Did I show you this?
I saw what Devin's doing, where you can make a circle and the buildings appear. It's so cool. So, I was like, I want that as a GIF, and I want to share that. So.
Yeah. So you showing how as you guys know, the node system is the crux of many of the systems. They all tie in to how the node progression works. And so some of what the environment team has been doing and the tech behind the progression of those nodes from a small crossroads to a giant metropolis is really in a great, from a technical standpoint, looking position. But we need to make sure that it's polished in a showable state. Right?
We also don't want to promise something that we can't deliver, right? Like when they're talking about the destruction of the walls. What we have internally is really awesome right now, but we don't want to show that to you guys in case we have to step back from it, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's kind of like
that's why I was saying
that's where the line that we kind of like make for ourselves is that we'll show you something that isn't that great, but if it's too cool, right? We don't want to show it and then have to bring it back. So we don't want to get you excited about something that we can't necessarily fulfill.
Yeah.
We hope to.
We were all pog-champing about it. So, but. Obviously, there's a lot of cool things coming up in the future, so we hope that you guys stay tuned. Obviously, if you're watching this now, just so you know, you can go ahead and hop in to the beta, open beta right now. There's a blog post. If you do exclamation beta in chat, it'll actually send you a link to our blog post that has all the information about the beta, including how to register, how to download the game, how to submit bugs. We have a new bug form, so if you have any bugs, please submit through that form. That is our newest form. It's going to help with QA in order to make sure they have all the details that they need in order to reproduce the bug and then be able to give design or the engineers or artists the details that they need in order to fix those issues. And then obviously we'll just keep you guys updated on the servers. I know we're going to have some patches here and there to fix some major issues that you guys are experiencing. We're of course getting those bugs and immediately trying to resolve them. And then of course our servers are going to be up until 10 p.m. PST or PDT.
PST.
Are we in standard?
PST right now.
We're standard time now. Oh my gosh.
The dark time.
On Sunday night. So we'll do some reminders. I have a 1 hour reminder before the servers are going to shut down, as well as a reminder when it goes down. And then
get in there and test in Apocalypse, because that data is very important for us.